if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you, Sandy. Does anyone have questions or comments?
This is
Crystal.
Sam from Robbinsdale.
Okay, how about Sam and then Crystal? Go ahead, Sam. Sam, I'm not able to hear you. I cannot hear you right now. Can everybody else hear Sam?
No.
No, okay.
I'm not muted.
There you go. I don't know what happened because I didn't see a mute sign on the video, but try again because I think you're back.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. My question is that, you know, regarding 287 and the type of students that are being educated, how are you going to implement with this distance learning, or, you know, what type of tools are you going to use, being that they require so much attention and a lot more one-on-one assistance with our staff?
Oh, what kinds of activities, Sam, are we doing? Is that the question?
Or what type of process will be implemented to, you know, educate, you know, these students going forward, being that they're, you know, they're high-level need students?
All right, I'm going to just make a comment, and then I'll ask Elizabeth and Ben if you want to comment on that. There's obviously, we know, a lot of different programs that we operate for kids with an IEP. It is a significant process just from a legal due process issue. And so there's a whole wealth of different things that we have to pay attention to just from that legal standpoint. And so a lot of work has been done in that then helps guide the actual instruction that students will receive. But I'm going to let Ben and Elizabeth maybe elaborate on a few different programs and how it might look different from one program to another.
Elizabeth, I'll jump in.
Yes, I'm sorry. It took me a minute to unmute my mic. This is Elizabeth. Well, I have to say that we have identified basic 3 levels of approaches to delivering instruction, and one of those is relying on paper and manipulatives and books that we're delivering to students, and then that will be enhanced with and worked through with our staff communicating with the students, whether it's through their communication device or video or phone. A next level, which is kind of hybrid, where there's some online access to resources and materials, but also some opportunities for phone calls and engagement. And then for some of our students and some of our teachers, that presence is going to look really online. There'll be connections every day with teachers across all these models, but that might look more online, or what we think of when we think of our North Star Online program, for example. So we're taking an approach of what works for the student. Another layer of that is we have our students who receive related services like speech and language and other related services, and those folks are planning with our students' IEP managers to really dovetail that work so that we don't overwhelm families and students with a lot of individual contacts. I'm really impressed with the nimble nature of our staff to be thinking about how this might look. And just one example, and then I'll let Ben elaborate a little bit. One of our students who serves Sun students at one of our sites, our teacher, by this is, let's see, what is today? This is Thursday. By last Friday, she had already recorded a week's worth of videos with songs, sing-alongs, read-along books, directions to access their literacy program for our most significantly impaired students, and she was helping her her colleagues develop those video tools. So it's been a combination. Ben, and I can let you add to that.
Yeah, I think the one point that I would like to make here is really back to where Sandy started with the in-house expertise and history that we have doing some of this work. And a lot of the credit to us getting off on the right foot here goes to John Voss. John developed right out of the gates 3 different pathways, the 3 pathways that Elizabeth was referencing. These pathways 1, 2, and 3 are on a continuum of service from non-digital work exclusively all the way up to what you'd find in a one-to-one environment using a learning management system. So very early on, we worked with teachers to make sure they understood the options that they had and thought about them on a continuum of how they were going to support students. That's really helped us from very early on to determine the pathway that teachers will take with students. And we're using those early steps that we took to understand now how we can deliver materials to students, how we're going to engage with them one-on-one, how we're going to do the check-ins that Elizabeth was talking about. So again, that history that we have, that in-house expertise, and again, a lot of the credit goes to John Voss, who's on this call and in the board meeting, because he got us off on the right foot and made sure that we had a good entry into for our teachers to understand how we're going to go forward.
Thank you, Ben. Crystal, you had or Sandy, did you want to add to that before we move on?
No, let's take the second question. Go ahead.
Okay, Crystal.
So mine was very similar to Sam's, actually, probably just a more specific version. I was curious about IEP meetings and specifically how we are going to approach compliance with IEPs in this distance learning phase that we are in, and just anything that you already can share related to that.
Elizabeth, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. We have developed a process where our IEP managers are in the process of or have developed individual distance learning plans that reflect the services and goals and objectives that our students have as a part of their IEP. This will be it is a supplement to the overall individual education plan. And what teachers are doing are identifying the services, identifying the goals and objectives as they are on the current IEP, and that will remain in play. But then working with families, and our IEP managers are calling all of our students, family members or parents, and getting input on that individualized education plan. We are following that after this conversation with a prior written notice. And there was a lot of discussion across the state as to whether there was a need to use the formal prior written notice, or if we might legally be able to inform the parent with an individualized distance learning plan and a letter basically saying we stand ready to serve, and this is how we will serve during this crisis. Our district landed, after consultation with our member districts, on not only the individualized distance learning plan, but a prior written notice. So our staff are in the process of consulting with families right now to ensure that we know clearly what they want us to focus on and what that individualized distance learning plan looks like, and then are preparing and sending out prior written notices. We believe that will provide the utmost protection in these very different times for our member districts who, in our world of due process, ultimately hold the responsibility for meeting those due process requirements.
Thank you. Crystal, does that help explain a little more? Additional questions or comments?
This is Michelle, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just wondering how we were dealing with the students that go to HTC, if there's a plan with that,
Mhm.
and if they can continue going there, or if that's just going to be out of their limits.
Yeah, I can, this is Sandy. I can try to answer that. HTC actually closed before we did. And so we were in a bit of a quandary before the governor made the statewide closure about how we were going to handle that. We were just about developing contingency plans, and then the governor closed everything. So the programs located at HTC are in the same process of all of our programs, trying to figure out what the best distance learning plan is given the circumstances that we're in.
And Regina, I could add to
Yes,
that.
please.
This is Elizabeth, and what's really exciting is Gateway to College is pursuing the digital, probably that high level of digital learning and supports and continuing relationship building. I'm really excited about Pathways, and I'm sure all of you probably wonder about that. Those are 100-minute classes with a lot that happens during those career tech. And I was just looking today on their plan, and they have prepared and are getting ready to launch the digital learning environment. I just was looking, if you will, in the culinary independent living cooking class. And it's fantastic what Chef Pat has put in place, and actually is promising in terms of thinking how we might expand access to career tech, having these folks working really hard to figure out how to put some of this work online. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, thank you. That's phenomenal. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Sandy, would you like to add some more?
I'll first see if there's any other questions. Then I'd just like to make a few other comments in closing. So I'll first see if there's any other questions from board members. Hearing none. I just want to, as Ben mentioned, thank both Elizabeth and Ben and John Voss for their instructional leadership in this time of extreme innovation, let's just say. It really has been fun to watch it unfold. It's been stressful at times, without a doubt, but the steadiness of those three people has been phenomenal, and it's the reason we're where we are today instructionally. I think a couple other things that board members might be interested in is we made a decision very early on, actually before we even closed, to view this as we would a crisis that would require us to go into incident command structure, which is the very defined crisis planning tool and structure that we utilize for major crises. And that process has served us very well. Chad has served as incident command, and he has become a very polished incident commander, I can tell you, running lots of meetings several times a day, but he is supplemented by several of our leaders that are on this hangout tonight. who have specific roles within that incident command. So that is a system that I think we have gotten now a lot of experience in, and I believe we are more skillful in being able to use it for future events. Hopefully we don't have any, but it has given us a lot of practice, but it's really been a good process for the kind of situation that we found ourselves in. The other thing I wanted to mention is you don't get through the 2 weeks that we have just completed without numerous communications going out to staff, to parents, to board members, to our publics. It has been a myriad of different communication needs, and I just want to thank Rachel for really being the Chief Public Information Officer for us. She served us very, very well, and I know she will continue in the coming days and weeks. But again, this is only something you can do with a team, and I'm grateful for the team and proud of our entire district staff for pulling together. The one thing I would close with is the same thing that I appeal to our staff, is that the first priority is the relationship and care and support of our kids and families. The learning is indeed an important goal, but right now, our kids, our families need a lot of support. They need to see their teachers. They need to have that relationship to anchor them. And so that is what we hope to be the first thing that parents and kids see when spring break is over and distance learning begins. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to do a checkout before we move on from this particular item. So Steve.
Pass.
Crystal.
Pass.
Andrea.
I have a quick question. Sorry, I didn't think of it earlier. Sandy, I'm wondering if you or Elizabeth could comment on looking at those 3 levels of instructional delivery. What will happen with our therapeutic teaching model, and for those kids who are in the classroom where they had that nice blended delivery? Is there a way to try to deliver some of that online?
Yes, thank you. I'll try to answer it. Certainly others can chime in here. Just as we started this, I had a conference call with Pahua Yang from Wilder, and she assured me that the Wilder therapists would be actively engaging in therapy, teletherapy, if you will, with the families and with kids as appropriate. And so that process has already been beginning to be laid out. So they will continue to have contact with the families and the students that they've served. Not in the same way, of course, not in a physical contact, but they will be, I'm sure, a critical piece to the families of those students.
Thank you, Sandy.
Sure.
Thank you. I will continue with checkout. Thanks for the question, Andrea. Michelle.
I pass.
Thank you. And I pass as well. Heidi.
Pass as well.
Sam.
No.
Adam.
Pass.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who has worked so hard on putting this plan in place. It is really remarkable, and just it's an amazing district. Thank you. This is just phenomenal. We will move on to our item of board business, which is the chair report with a resolution regarding meetings by telephone or other electronic means. I'm not going to read the full resolution. We have all of that in board book. I'll just comment on the 4 items that are specifically addressed in this resolution provided for by state statute in the case of pandemic. The resolution will allow us to continue our meetings by telephone or other electronic means until further notice. And we have also, by resolution, we are asking that we waive a requirement for an individual board member to be present at the regular meeting location, because we're deeming that that is a health risk during this particular time. Also recognizing that it's not feasible for the public to attend at the regular meeting location. The third item that the resolution addresses is that we still welcome public comment. That is always an important part of our role on the board. We're asking that the public provide their comments by written testimony and send them by email at least 30 minutes in advance of the start of a board meeting. And then finally, 287 staff members can monitor our electronic meetings from the district website, and members of the public can request a copy of the recording of the meeting. So are there any questions or comments regarding the resolution before we take the roll call vote? So, I will do a checkout. Or did you have a comment, Steve?
No.
Okay, I'm just going to do checkout then for questions or comments before we make a motion to approve the resolution. Steve?
A checkout.
Oh, sorry, just you could either pass or do you have a comment? or
pass.
question? Thank you. Crystal?
Pass.
Andrea?
Pass.
Michelle?
Pass.
I pass. Heidi?
Pass.
Sam?
I have a question regarding number 4.
Okay.
Just in regards, why are we stating that it's not practical to live stream the meeting? My concern is that, that we don't want to look like we're trying to hide anything, do anything, behind the kind of closed doors amongst ourselves is my only issue.
Sure. And Chad or Ann, is that something that either of you could address?
I think Chad can address that. It has to do with our platform.
Yes, I can. Currently, right now, with the current configuration, we don't have live streaming enabled. We're working on that so that we can live stream to the public. We just don't have it in place at this time, but we are working towards that. We are recording this, and so it is available to the public so they can view this after the fact. But in the very near future, we will be live streaming to the public.
And as if I'm correct, anyone who is a member of the 287 staff can live stream this. So even though it's not an option for the public, it is currently an option for staff members. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I have a follow-up question then too. Then if we'll be able to live stream it in future meetings, will then we be able to allow then for public comments then as well?
If the board determines that that's a requirement, then that will inform our decision making around which platform we use. I don't believe that in this current platform that's a possibility, which would mean that we would have to expand the options that we're looking at that would allow for that.
That would just be my only concern because of transparency and how this is being deliberated. I understand with the circumstances is that I want to make sure that we give everyone the chance to attend our meeting virtually and to allow them to speak if they need to.
Thank you for the question. And so what I'm hearing is that we can take a look at the platform to see what might be possible. And it sounds like what could be achievable is to possibly live stream for the public, but that it would be additional steps to allow for live public comment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Sam, is that helpful for the time being?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Adam, do you have any questions or comments before we ask for a motion?
Pass.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Anne.
thank you.
I'm just wondering if you wanted a motion to waive the reading. Is that what you were planning to do?
No, but I appreciate that clarification. We can make a motion to waive the reading. So thank you. Is there a motion to waive the reading?
This
So
is
moved.
Michelle, so moved.
Moved by Michelle. Is there a second?
Second by Steve.
Seconded by Steve. Thank you. And Crystal, can you please do a roll call vote to waive the reading?
Adams.
Yes.
Brackey is a yes. Keen.
Yes.
Coons.
Yes,
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Heidi Marty, so moved.
Moved by Heidi. Is there a
Steve
second?
Adams, second.
Thank you. Seconded by Steve. And Crystal, please call the roll.
Adams.
Yes.
Brackey is a yes. Keen.
Yes.
Coons.
aye,
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is the AMSD report. Andrea, are there any updates that you can offer or additional comments regarding the AMSD report?
Thanks, Regina. I could make a couple of comments. Unfortunately, as you all know, the AMSD Day at the Capitol was canceled, but Scott Cronquist and his team continue to work tirelessly remotely to represent our school districts. In addition to the original AMSD platform, they've added 3 main areas that they are working with legislators to help them understand. The first is to provide a funding stream to allow school districts to provide meals and childcare. I'm assuming for District 287, the meals piece would be important. We didn't talk earlier about childcare. I'm thinking 287 is not supplying any child care for emergency workers. Is that right, Sandy?
We actually had an opportunity for parents to ask if they could have it if they were the tier 1 category. And although we had a number of inquiries about it, ultimately none of them were viable. And so at the present time, we are not providing any child care at this point.
Okay.
I would say in regard to food services, we have been supportive these first couple weeks in getting a lot of food to students. But in the upcoming future, we are not going to have food service at the 2 schools that we were providing it, just because it's been a very low access rate. And I think that has to do with the fact that kids and families are accessing it more in their local districts. But we stand ready to reevaluate that should it be needed.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandy. School districts are using resources in their community ed and nutrition services funds to carry out the directives and the governor's executive orders. But at the same time, these 2 funds have been severely impacted by lost fee revenues. I'm guessing you all are experiencing that in your home districts. The second piece AMSD is looking at is allowing the Commissioner of Education to recalculate special ed per pupil transportation revenue for school districts. And the third is to allow the Commissioner to recalculate career and technical revenue, non-public pupil transportation aid, interdistrict desegregation transportation, and adult basic education aid to ensure that revenue does not fall below the amount estimated for the 1920 school year. I would recommend, if you have questions about any of those items, to head on over to the AMSD website. Scott and his team have put together a really great landing point, I think, for resources about all of the governor's executive orders, the impacts they have on education, follow-up guidance from Minnesota Department of Education, and just a lot of really great links for all sorts of resources for distant learning as well. So I would recommend all of you continue to use AMSD as a resource. They are continuing to do their work, and I'll keep you posted with anything that happens. I'm wondering, does everyone receive the AMSD updates from Scott as school board members, or is that something you'd like me to forward on to you?
Could you forward? That's Michelle.
And this is Regina. I have a question. I know I'm not receiving them, so I would like to receive them. If you can forward them, I would appreciate it. Or is there a way that I can just sign up as a 287 board member directly on the AMSD site?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll find out. I know
can also
for,
go to the site.
for our Legislative Action Committee, I just forward it on every time, but I could forward it on to Juanine. But in the meantime, I'll talk to Scott and find out how that would happen. 287 is a member, so obviously that should be easy.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll also check the website because I would, yeah, thank you. I have been going to the site, but I didn't think to just subscribe. So that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. I think that's it, unless anyone has questions.
Any questions? Comments? Go ahead.
Sorry, I have one more comment. We will be holding the Executive Legislative Committee meeting tomorrow morning digitally, but the large meeting, the Board of Directors meeting in April for AMSD will be canceled just because the group is too large to do it digitally.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding AMSD? So I will go through our list before we move forward on regarding AMSD. Steve?
Pass.
Crystal?
Pass.
Andrea?
Pass.
Michelle?
Pass.
Heidi?
Pass.
Sam?
No.
Adam?
Pass.
Thank you. And as we start to wrap up the agenda, Sandy or Juanine, are there any calendar items that you would like to cover for all of us before we adjourn?
Madam Chair, this is Sandy. I just call to your attention, like many things, we have canceled the Get on the Bus that was scheduled for April. We will not be in session, obviously, so we will have to figure out an alternative once things get back to normal.
Thank you. And I do want to close with a once around the table, because it is just an extraordinary time, and I know every district has done some incredible work. So before we adjourn, I will just invite each of you to share anything regarding your district, if you would like to. Steve.
Thank you. Yes, our Legislative Action Coalition actually conducted several Google Hangouts with our legislators this week. And it's really only two issues that we had to talk about this week. One was the student nutrition, because we normally serve 7,000 meals a day. We're down now below 1,000, but we're having to pay the staff that would normally provide the 7,000. So we're asking our legislators for some relief on that. And then the child care issue too. We fund our child care out of our community education fund, and our numbers are way down on that, of course, too. So that's going to go into deficit by about 1.3 million, we figure, if this continues to the end of the school year. So I'm glad to hear that AMSD is lobbying on our behalf for those two items as well.
Thank you. Crystal.
Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate Regina and especially the team for all of the technological support in getting this first virtual meeting to happen. We had our last Richfield meeting last Monday night, and it was in person, socially distant, but in person, and don't have our next school board meeting until April 6th. So as the chair of the Richfield board, I really appreciate being able to see and experience this. And also same to Hopkins, Steve. I watched your board meeting on Friday.
You did?
I did.
How do you get in
because
there?
It's really helpful in preparing, and so I appreciate everybody for the work and the just the lessons and the learnings that we're all sharing with each other at this time.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you. Andrea.
Thanks. Steve, it's so great to hear that your LAC is doing Google Hangouts. Wow.
Yeah.
Think of that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'll also share with you that in addition to AMSD, they're collaborating with MSBA and MASA so that all of those education organizations have a coordinated message that they're going to the Capitol with. So I feel like if they can hear from Hopkins and hear from all those organizations, that's good. Hopefully our legislators are starting to understand. But in Wayzata, we did hold a special meeting on Monday night. So we had our first foray into a digital meeting. It was okay, a little clunky, but I guess that's to be expected. But I just think 287 and 284, the amount of work going on behind the scenes is just mind-boggling to me. I can hardly keep up with my email. I don't know how people are inventing a whole new way to do education and keep up with their emails. So thanks to everyone at 287 for all the hard work. It's just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude. 287 is just stepping up all the time, and I realize it's an emotional roller coaster for all of us. And I just hope that everyone stays well and especially take good care of yourselves because this is serious. So anyway, I look forward to the next one, the next meeting.
Thank you.
Oh.
Heidi.
I've just been kind of in awe of our teachers and in particular our superintendent and how so much of this has had to come together so quickly. It's just I have so much admiration for our staff and our administrative team. It's just been so heartwarming to see how much they care about our kids. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
First, I'd like to, say thank you to Sandy and her staff. They're doing a tremendous job, trying to, with what we've been dealt with, right now with this tragedy and to deal with it. I never thought in my lifetime, my parents came from countries where this is, happens often, and never thought coming here that we have to deal with this here, So it's pretty crazy, and it's new for all of us and a learning curve. So again, I have to thank the staff of 287 for the work that they've done and creating a plan to implement with the distance learning. We're also doing the same thing in Robbinsdale 281. This week our our district has been on spring break, and they've worked to implement a new way to learn. We've also been handing out lots of lunches, two meals a day for breakfast and lunches for any student that would like to come to many of our schools to pick up. Starting next week, we'll start to implement distance learning. We're going to try to, work with our busing to try to implement providing packets and workbooks, once a week to our students and making sure they get the right information. We're doing a lot of things online, making sure our teachers are available online to ask questions, to use Google Hangouts or Skype, things like that, and then to try to get more one-on-one attention. But it's going to be quite a learning curve, and it's going to be interesting to see how we all do it. So good luck to everybody else too, and all the other member districts, and hopefully everything goes out well in the next few months here.
Thank you, Sam. Adam.
Thank you. I think I would just reiterate what was said by everyone so far with regards to thanking the Sandy and staff. We're facing a lot. Obviously, everyone's facing the same thing in their home districts. So I'm not going to go into too long of what we're looking at in Eden Prairie. Our spring break is coming up next week. Maybe we were fortunate that we had we were prepared that first Wednesday after schools were closed to go ahead with distance learning before the governor asked all districts to hold off on that. So maybe we were lucky that we had all of our staff in the building these last 2 weeks to fully prepare for 2 Mondays from now when we'll be back. But other than that, just thank you all for your work.
Thank you. And I'll just, close with the same kind of comments from Adina and looking at some of the biggest needs we've been working on meeting are food insecurities and providing the breakfast and lunch. And then we've identified a large number of our families who have food insecurity with the third meal as well. So have 3 of our organizations have been partnering together to try to figure out how do we get our hands around this? How do we support it? And some really incredible partnerships have emerged to try to figure out how do we acquire that third meal. And some of it, Sheridan Story has been back in the loop. I know 287 has done a lot of work with Sheridan Story. They were overwhelmed that first week because no one could have anticipated what this was. So we started to connect with some other groups. Now we're back with Sheridan Story. But I think that part of our legislative message, and I'm sure that this is present, that the legislature is aware of this, but the need for support for 3 meals a day is going to be significant for a lot of our families. And we just need to figure out a way to meet the demand and then sustain it, because it doesn't appear that this is going to be short term. So a lot of creative thinking. I'm just so impressed with everyone who's coming up with incredible ideas and new partnerships, but lots to do. So thank you, everyone. Sandy, I'm going to invite you to give any closing comments before we adjourn.
Only that I appreciate everybody's willingness to try a new way of having a board meeting, and I found it to be very successful. So I'm grateful for that, and I'll look forward to the April board meeting when there will be probably more items on the agenda for sure. But other than that, thank you for your support as board members. The letter that was sent out to all staff was really appreciated in this point in time when we are all physically distant. Staying close with our words and with our emotions and with our support to each other is critical to getting through this. So thank you very much for being a part of that.
Thank you. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Steve Adams.
Moved by Steve. Sam, was that a second?
Yes, Sam. Yeah.
Thank you. Seconded by Sam. And Crystal, would you please call the roll for adjournment?
Adams.
Yes.
Brackey is yes. Keen.
Yes.
Coons.
Aye.
Marty.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone? Because I had already put my list away.
I'm sorry.
I think you got them all.
Okay, that was my memory.
All right. So with
Thanks,
that,
Val.
motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:26. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Regina. Bye,
You
everybody.
too.
Take
Thank
care.
you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Nice job, board members.
Yeah, thanks, Janet.
Bye.
Thank you.